It started with a teenager screaming in a hallway at 9 in the morning, slamming doors, and telling me he didn't have to listen to anything I said because his aunt worked at the hotel. I went to check the reservation under his aunt's employee account. There was no reservation. There were no employee room bookings that week at all. What I found instead was a fraud scheme that had quietly been running under our roof for at least a year, operated by 2 of our own employees. This is a story about a hotel, 3 rooms marked out of order that were anything but, a married couple working into different departments, and a fraud scheme that unraveled because one teenager couldn't keep his voice down at breakfast. Hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, and let me tell you how a noise complaint turned into a termination case. I was working the morning shift at a hotel property a few years back. Our front desk had a side window with a clear sightline down a hallway, leading to several ground floor rooms, useful for keeping an eye on things without having to physically patrol. Around 9 in the morning, I noticed activity through that window. 3 or 4 teenage boys running back and forth between the breakfast room and a cluster of guest rooms, screaming, slamming doors. The kind of noise that, if left unchecked, was going to generate a guest complaint within the hour. I went over to address it. I asked them to keep it down. One of the boys, apparently feeling the need to assert himself in front of his friends, decided this was a moment for a confrontation. "I'll do what I want, don't you know who I am?" I told him I didn't, and that regardless of who he was, the noise needed to stop or they'd be asked to vacate the rooms. He told me he didn't have to do anything because his aunt worked at the hotel. I told him to start packing. I was going to call his parents and let them know he was being asked to leave. This is, for the record, a fairly standard interaction in hospitality. Teenagers test boundaries, invoke connections real or imagined, and usually back down once it's clear the staff member isn't intimidated by the claim. I expected this to resolve the normal way, with some grumbling and compliance. It did not resolve the normal way. I went back to the front desk to look up their reservations, intending to find the employee account under which the rooms had been booked, and verify the situation. The 3 rooms in question were marked out of order in our system, not booked, not occupied by anyone with a reservation. Officially, according to our property management system, those rooms were unavailable for any use. I called our general manager immediately. He confirmed there were no employee room bookings scheduled for that week at all. Nothing under the aunt's name, nothing under any staff account. Nothing that would explain 3 teenagers occupying 3 rooms that the system itself said didn't exist as usable inventory. It would turn out to matter quite a bit. Here is a piece of context that becomes essential to understanding what happened next. Our night auditor and our housekeeping supervisor were married to each other. They worked in different departments, reported to different people, and management had never seen this as a conflict of interest worth addressing. They had worked at the property together for over a decade before I'd even started. Aside from the night auditor having been written up once or twice for sleeping in his car during shifts, which, in hindsight, takes on a very different meaning, they were both considered reliable, long-tenured employees. Nobody had any reason to look closely at how their respective roles might intersect. That was about to change.